Hello and hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the Fortnite World Cup Qualifier number 6 breakdown. So I hope you guys all enjoy because the storylines do continue. Luckily this weekend around though, it was not Epic's fault for a lot of in-game issues we've seen the past few weeks, but this time around so many amazing storylines, not for pro players who only qualify, but on top of that, pro players who almost qualified and really surprised me in the standings, especially out of North America. So I hope you guys all enjoy the breakdown. Of course, for week number 6, we have 4 weeks left. We've officially crested over or kind of broken over the halfway point with this past weekend, and there are still so many pro players we thought the top ones in the world who have not landed their spots quite yet. I'm sure we'll talk about their names here sometime soon, but let's break it down. Our first region, that being North American East, and it was some great news out there for fans of people out there who've had many consistent runs, that of course being Landjock and Punisher. Cease and Elevate, both those duos have had very consistent and strong finishes, especially Cease and Elevate, and it's great to see those two duos finally nail their spots. I would say though, even more impressively, Dubs and Mega. Of course, Dubs formerly accused of cheating, and they have now qualified as well in the duos, and they did so in probably the most amazing fashion. Their last 2 matches, they managed to qualify by scoring 53 points. So it was pretty impeccable, especially that being their last 2 matches, and that's what actually pushed them over that point placement. So it was really crazy to see those 3 duos. On top of that, though, I would say even more good news out there because Ronaldo and XXIF, of course, accused of teaming just 2 weeks ago, and now 2 weeks later with a great punishment system. Yeah, let's just cheat. You guys can come on back 2 weeks later and nearly qualify and possibly take points away from other teams out there. Luckily enough, this time around, though, they did not manage to qualify, but in doing so, the team who could have actually knocked them out of their chances, that being Ops and Calculator, you feel bad for them, especially when it comes down to such a few slim point margin of the difference between not going and actually going to World Cup. But at least this time around, cheaters are not going. I cannot imagine the backlash we would have seen this weekend around if Ronaldo and XXIF did qualify. Yes, XX has proven himself as a top player. He had a very good placement. Even with those teaming points, he would have qualified this last duos weekend 2 weeks ago. He has proven himself as a very good player, but his name is forever marked with that cheating background, and if he does even manage to qualify in future weekends, I expect an uproar because he has stolen a spot from someone who really does deserve it and was legit about it. And also in very big news out there, I would say even more surprising than Mega and Dubs, they've also made, of course, individually, Mega, but more so, of course, Dubs, solo-wise, has been one of the best North American players, especially throughout 2019, come out of nowhere. On top of that, though, I think even more surprising is the great improvement between these 2 players, that being Reverse2k and Ninja, finally living up to the hype and, of course, proving so many people wrong. It's been great to watch their past 3 weekends, the steady improvement this past weekend, by far and away their best placement, and in doing so, if you guys watched their scrims and practices this past week, I was really worried. I don't know about you guys. Ninja was definitely expressing kind of his worries about mobility being all disabled this time around because their landing spots and their gameplay, certainly like many pro players out there, depend upon that mobility, but they did an amazing job together, and it's great to see them chemistry wise continue to click and actually prove themselves as really world top talent, and especially a guy like Ninja, where many people out there thought he had no chance, especially given he's just a typical streamer, right? A lot of people love to hate on Ninja, and of all the big streamers out there, he has certainly proved himself to be one of the top ones in terms of World Cup placements, and it's great to see their chemistry. We'll talk about more chemistry duos out there later on, but very lastly, out of North American East, it's yet again Tfue and Cloakzy, another strong finish, actually their strongest duo finish of the 3 weeks so far we've had for duo qualifiers. They had a bit of a strong surge at the beginning as well as the end of kind of a comeback push towards this. Their middle matches, though, certainly a struggle, and yet again, we have our number 1 and 2, arguably best players in the world, not qualifying for World Cup this past weekend. They get steadily closer. They keep on breaking viewership numbers. They're still so fun to watch, but in terms of actual placements, they have yet to grab any World Cup spots, which just goes to show you how tough this game is. You go back to Ninja as well as Reverse, they won 3 of their matches, guys. They won 30% of their matches and still managed to not qualify for World Cup, just to show you how hard it really is. And North American East, the competitiveness, it just keeps on increasing. And speaking of North American East, of course, their sister, that's going to be North American West. They might have a new duo coming to East sometime soon because that is North American West. No one's going to catch Jay and Little. I'll give it to them. A stellar run for themselves. The talk of the town, though, for me at least, I'm a fanboy of Nick Merckx and, of course, his partner Neo as well. They've been making some steady placements. I'm not going to say they were a standout. I think they had 1 weekend with a top 30 finish, I do believe, and they were looking like they at least had an opportunity, right? They were there, they were making Sunday finals each and every weekend, so it's great to see. But this past weekend was the last weekend they will likely be on NA West. I do believe now with Nick Merckx in the coming weeks moving to Michigan, they should be moving to NA East, and it should be an all-around improvement ping-wise for that roster or for that duo. So I'm excited to see if they can actually improve. But this past weekend was their best placement as well. We saw a lot of duos out there had their best placements, and so I'm very, very happy to see these guys doing so well, because the argument out there was Neo. He was an incredible talent kind of carrying Nick, but it's great to see a great placement and hopefully going to carry that momentum when they get better ping, as I do believe that duo should be improving. But again, when it comes to repeating placements like this, it is very tough. It's very RNG, and I'm really crossing my fingers to see a controller player like these two actually make the World Cup finals. Moving to Europe though, we have seen some very stable hitters out there in terms of the best players in the world. Of course, you have Benji and Savage arguments right now, who is better between those two, and of course Mongrel getting the argument on top of that. But even more so, guys, Stompy and Shinken, just like Benji and Savage, this is now 3 weekends in a row with top placements. Of course, a first place finish this past weekend. It is impossible to argue who's going to be the top hitter when it comes to World Cup. But out of Europe, we certainly have 3 or 4 stable duos out there who continue to place very well and do so in very impressive fashion. They are certainly one of them and among the best in the world. So very impressive for them, and congrats to them as well for nabbing their spots. But most importantly, I am so happy to announce, I'm sure many of you guys saw Airwalks. He has finally grabbed his first World Cup spot. It is so well deserved, I can't even express it right now, and they do so, him and his partner scoring 98 points in just 7 matches, and they knew, pretty much a lot of people knew out there they were going to qualify after such a stellar run themselves, winning, I believe, I want to say their last 3 matches as well, looking so incredibly dominant. And again, probably one of the most well-deserved duos, or at least players out there, that being Airwalks, to actually go. If you guys have been following him week by week, not only placing just outside the placement spot, but in the way it actually happened. Of course, a few weeks back, it was actually an in-game issue which cost him potentially a spot at the World Cup. It is so nice to see a player out there so well-deserving and playing so well and earning that spot on top of that. Now, very lastly, our last 3 regions. As many of you guys know, we kind of fly past these ones, blah, 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 OCE. Of course, we also have Asia and Brazil, but when it comes to the Asian scene, if you guys did watch our last video on the channel last week, it still bothers me immensely. Now, of course, you go to Brazil, we have some W7M members who continue to dominate, so good for them. But back to Asia is where I really get worried about even established organizations out there, because of the name that's been tossed around in China. Of course, the cheating scene that we all know about in terms of esports, China is the region where it is done. So even when we have 2 newbie guys actually manage to qualify, I begin to wonder if anything did happen, because last week we actually had a couple SV duos. If you guys do not know, SV still have players qualifying, or at least trying to qualify, and we had clear-cut, I would say pretty clear-cut evidence of at least 2 duos. One of them was actually Hair and his partner known as Gangsta, pretty clearly teaming in a solo World Cup event. I believe it was actually last weekend's, and they're still competing. They're still allowed to compete, and it's pretty crazy that you have some stories blow up about XXIF, and then the Asian scene, these stories don't really blow up, and these players are still allowed to try and compete. So if this does happen, if an SV member does actually qualify, these are the kind of people that have gaming houses. They specify, they specialize in this kind of stuff, and it does seem, by what we've seen so far, a very clear intent on trying to qualify no matter what it takes from the SV organization. So it kind of bothers me when you see a guy like Hair that high up in the standings, when there's alleged, of course, allegations out there around him possibly cheating, and if he were to qualify and take someone's spot, it would be disappointing, and hopefully some more stuff will be done to look into that if it does come to that. Again, a top 10 placement is pretty darn close, so we'll see what happens in the future out of those smaller regions out there. But still, the competitiveness, the storylines, I'm just so thankful this past week and we didn't have too many in-game issues taking players out of it. It just came down to pure skill, pure luck, and pure RNG as usual. I hope you guys all enjoy World Cup Breakdown number 6. I'll of course be back here later this week with any Fortnite news that breaks down, and on top of that, be back next Monday breaking down World Cup Qualifier number 7 to see if any new pro players can grab their World Cup spots. As always, my name is Jake. Hope you guys all enjoy. I'll see you back here sometime soon, and until then, take care.